Today, Democrats are zeroing in on the growing tally of President Trump's vanity projects. They're convening a monumental waste public forum to hear testimony about Trump's spending on everything from his White House ballroom to the reflecting pool, Triumphal Arch, and more. The focus will be on just how much taxpayer money is being spent and the alleged corruption surrounding these projects, all at a time when Americans are struggling with the basic cost of living. Not only are gas prices back up over $4 a gallon, new polling shows 2/3 of Americans say they find groceries unaffordable. Joining me now, one of the Democrats convening this forum, Connecticut Democratic Senator Richard Blumenthal. He's a member of the Senate Judiciary and Armed Services Committee. Senator, thank you so much for being with us. Tell us, what do you hope is going to be revealed at this forum?
What we hope to show, Alicia, is that corruption has costs. At a time when American families are struggling to make ends meet, Donald Trump has about 18 of these vanity projects, ranging from the ballroom to the Triumphal Arch to the reflecting pool, costing a total of more than $1 billion. Corruption has costs because it means ballooning bills and cratering quality. What we're seeing in all of these projects so far is that they are costing way more than was projected, and often the work is shoddy and substandard. So the lesson here is that we need to cut the corruption with the no-bid contracts and sole source agreements that are often to Trump donors or pals. In the case of the reflecting pool, the contractor there was a big-time Trump donor, about $500,000, and this kind of corruption has to be stopped.
Let's talk about those no-bid contracts. You have the New Republic calling Trump the, quote, no-bid president, saying, look under any rock in Washington these days and you'll find a no-bid contract. His administration has taken no-bid contracts for everything from the reflecting pool to the border wall to the ballroom and more. I think as you think sort of about what is on the other side of this Trump period, does Congress need to take a look at no-bid contracts, that approval process? Is there actually a mechanism that Congress could put in place to stop this from happening?
There is already a procedure in place that requires often that there be bids and competition. Think of it for a moment. If you were doing a major project on your home, you wouldn't just take the first person who gives you a projected bid. You'd want to know whether there's a better deal. And that's what the law should require. That's why we're having this spotlight forum. It should really be a bipartisan hearing, but Republicans are looking the other way. They want nothing to do with revealing Trump corruption. And yes, pay to play is alive and well in this administration. And very often it involves people who have contributed to Trump's campaign or provided support for his private projects. And that's why we do need reforms, again, in the bidding procedures.
Senator, you referenced your Republican colleagues. I want to get your sense of where they are on another issue. I know that you have said you yourself do not support Jay Clayton's nomination to be Director of National Intelligence. I wonder, though, what you're hearing from your colleagues, especially your Republican colleagues. Do you think Clayton's nomination could actually be in jeopardy?
It could well be in jeopardy because Republican colleagues know that Todd Blanche is perhaps uniquely unqualified for this role. He is the president's defense lawyer. That's his mission in life. He is Donald Trump's personal henchman and consigliere, exactly the opposite of what the Attorney General of the United States should be, which is the people's lawyer. And my Republican colleagues on the Judiciary Committee know in their bones that he should be voted down. But, you know, Alicia, I have long lost hope that Republican colleagues have the backbone to stand up to this president. I believe that Senators Cornyn and Tillis may well vote against him, but I'll believe it when I see it.
Senator, forgive me because I know the Russell Rotunda can be incredibly loud. I was actually asking about DNI Clayton, given that there are both confirmation hearings that are ongoing.
I think Clayton has proven even more potentially unqualified because his answers, for example, on whether the president who won the 2020 election, refusal to answer that question, other kinds of flubs that he committed during the course of his hearing, I think has raised grave doubts. But the same answer applies, that Republicans have proven that they will need a backbone to stand up to this president. So far, they haven't shown it.
I want to ask you, too, about the Iran war, especially given Hegseth's appearance on the Hill. 17 service members have been killed in the conflict. Nearly 100 have been injured since July 7th. I want to play for you some of what the president said about this just in the last hour.
They did slip something through in Jordan, and if we had other operators, would not happened, unfortunately. But because we have the best equipment in the world, we've stopped almost everything. But when you let other people do your job, with the United States, we let other people do the job, and sometimes it doesn't work out so well.
You have the Pentagon asking for another $350 billion in funding. How does this end?
The problem with that request for more money is that the president has given no indication that he knows or has a plan for how it ends. We're in a quagmire. It's quicksand. The more he struggles, the deeper he immerses the United States. The loss of life for our American servicemen and women is what so deeply troubles me. The potential for more casualties and more deaths. And for what? The war began without any strategy or exit plan, any clear objectives, and the tragedy of these losses, two brave, qualified, competent, skilled servicemen and women over this past weekend, and the likelihood that more will perish tragically, is what ought to lead disapproval of this additional request for funding. And that's why I will be against it. I voted against the NDAA because we've been given no opportunity to vote on this war. The president's refused to come to us, as he is required under the Constitution, for approval of this war. And I think the American people sense that there has to be an end to it, and the president has failed to demonstrate any leadership. He believes that we are winning, and the cost is going to be in human life, not only our servicemen and women, but also others around the world in the Persian Gulf nations.
Senator Richard Blumenthal making the stakes very clear. Senator, thank you. Next.